Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth video by the community. In this video we'll be talking about variables, and then we'll be talking about constants, keywords, and lastly we'll be talking about data types. Now, what is a variable? A variable is a name entity because every variable is associated with a name, and what it can do, it can change its value. Where? During the execution of the program. And these variables are stored in the computer memory, also known as the RAM. Now that we know what a variable is and where it is stored, let us see how it is declared in the program. So in order to declare a variable, first of all what we need is the data type, followed by the name of the variable, and this part is optional, followed by a semicolon. You make use of this optional part when you know the value that the variable is going to hold, and in case when you don't know the value that the variable is going to hold, just omit this optional part. Having said that, let us now look at the rules for naming a variable. The first rule says that the first character should be an alphabet. The second rule says that no special characters are allowed except for the underscore. Keywords cannot be used as the name of a variable, and the maximum length of your variable name should not exceed 31 characters. Now that we know what a variable is, let us move forward and talk about constants. So what are constants? Constants are also entity, but the catch is that its value does not changes. Integer numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or decimal number like 2.45, 7.35, and then string like the name of a person or the name of a particular street or the name of a planet, all comes under constant. Constant are the value that we assign to a variable. And lastly, constant are of two types, numeric and string, that we have already discussed here in the second point. Let us now discuss about keywords. Keywords are reserved of the C language itself, and these keywords have some predefined meaning, and these meaning are assigned to them by something known as a compiler, and hence the keyword cannot be used as an identifier. Now if you are wondering what an identifier is, these are basically unique name given to entities like variable and then functions, so that they can be referred during the execution of the program. The C language has 32 keywords, and some of them are integers, character, float, if, and so on. Now that we know what keywords are, let us discuss about data types. What is a data type? Data type is a keyword which helps to determine the type of value that we are going to store in a variable. It also helps to determine the type of operations that can be performed on the value stored inside of a variable. Now if the variable holds some numeric value, then the type of operation that can be performed on this variable will be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and so on. Let us now look at some of the example of these data types. Int, it is used to indicate that the value stored inside of a variable is an integer. Similarly, char indicates that the value is a character or a stream of characters. Float determines that the value is a real number. Boolean determines that the value is either true or false. And double is used whenever we need to store decimal number but with double precision as to that provided by the float data type. Now that we know all these concepts, let us look at them in action. These one line of code make use of all the concepts that we have discussed in this video. And what this one line of code actually does is that it declares a variable by the name of age and it assigns a value of 15 to this variable. Now if you look carefully at this particular line of code, you will see that there is a data type whose job is to tell the compiler the type of value that is going to be stored in this particular variable. The name of this variable is age, which is nothing but an identifier. Now if you are wondering what an identifier is, it is nothing but a unique name given to an entity like variables and functions. Having said that, we also have a numeric constant which is being assigned to this variable whose data type is nothing but integer. And if you look carefully to this int at this integer, you will be surprised to know that this is also a keyword and at the same time a data type. From the rule of naming a variable, we got to know that the first character of a variable should always begin with an alphabetical character. But what if it begins with a number? Let us see what happens. We can see that it returns an error. Having said that, what happens if we make use of special character other than the underscore, like the hash over here? It also returns an error saying hash cannot be used. Now what if instead of variable name age we use a variable name if, which is also a keyword, and execute it? It also returns an error. So with this small experiment we saw how the rule of naming a variable matters. But when we give a proper name to a variable, it should not be returning any error. Yes, and it did not return any error. Now that we have assigned a value of 15 to a variable by the name age, we want to print the value that the age holds. And what should we do for that? We should make use of printf function. Now that we have written the printf function, the next problem we face is how to pass this variable to this function. And the answer to that is something known as the format descriptor. Now what this format descriptor actually does is that it tells the compiler how this particular data is to be represented or be interpreted internally. Once we pass the format descriptor %d, in this case since we are dealing with integer, take note of how our format descriptor is within this double quotes. The second thing that we need is the variable itself. In this case the variable is age. Now let us execute our code and see what happens. We can see that 15 is being outputted in your screen. Previously in this video we learned that a variable is something whose value can change. So in this line I have declared an integer variable and assigned a value of 15 to it. Now in the next line what I did is I printed out a message saying the old age is, and then I have defined a format descriptor telling the compiler that here you will be getting an integer value. And then in the next line what I did is I changed the value of age from 15 to 20, and then in this line I printed out the new age. Now when we execute the code we'll see an output which says the old age is 15 and the new age is 20. So you can see how the value of the variable changed initially from 15 and then to 20. But what if I need these two statements, the old age is 15 and the other statement, the new age is 20, in two separate lines? For that we have to make use of a concept known as the escape sequence. So what is an escape sequence? An escape sequence is nothing but a special string which is used to control the output. Some example of escape sequences: \n, which gives a new line whenever it encounters it, and \t, which gives a tab space. Let us now put an escape sequence over here and divide our output into two lines, and for that we need to make use of / followed by n. Now that I have inserted the escape sequence /n, which is used to start a new line, let us execute our code. We can see that after we have inserted this escape sequence we are able to get our output in two lines. Now other than the age, if I also want to print the name, then in that case I need a variable which can hold a string of characters, for which the data type that we need to use is something known as a char. As you can see in this code, I have declared an integer variable by the name age, and I have assigned a value of 15 to it. And then in the second line I have declared a character variable by the name of name, and I have initialized it with the value character. But when I go and execute this code, I see an error that looks something like this. And then I remember that the char variable can only store a single character. So what I do is I'll change the value. Now with this change value, if I go and execute, I still get an error. And the reason to this is because anything within the double quotes is considered as a stream of character or a combination of characters instead of an individual character. So what do I do now? I'll change this double quotes into single quotes. After changing the double quotes to single quotes, the program works perfectly fine. But I want to store a name rather than just this single character, and for that I need to make use of a concept known as a character array. Now once I change the variable name from a character to a character array, I am able to initialize it with the Now once I change the variable name into a character array, I am able to initialize it with the stream of characters. and when we execute it, it works perfectly fine. Now what this 20 inside the square bracket means? It means the total number of characters that the name variable can store inside it. Let us now print these values into the output screen, for which we make use of printf function. Now after adding this two-liner printf statement, we can see that in the first printf statement we are making use of %s format specifier, which tells the compiler that here you'll be getting a string. And in the second line we have added %d as the format specifier, which tells the compiler that here you'll be getting an integer. Also take note that how these two format specifier is inserted within the double quotes. Now when we go and execute the program, we get my name is Hello Mellow Jello and my age is 15 as an output. Now if you want to divide this into two lines, just place an escape sequence over here, or you can place it over here, and then we execute it, and you can see the output that spans over two lines. Well, that's all for this video. If you have any problem, you can email me. In the next video we'll be discussing about input functions and operators. Thank you.